Welcome back to our channel, English Av. The story of Mia, a 28-year-old woman who has relocated from Italy to Melbourne, Australia, is a vivid exploration of life, love, and the challenge of mastering a new language. Living in a bustling Australian city with her boyfriend Lucas, Mia is not only adapting to a different culture, but also undertaking the significant task of learning English, a language that holds the key to her successful integration into this new chapter of her life. Central to Mia's journey is the process of expanding her English vocabulary. For Mia, learning English is much more than just picking up new words. It's about understanding the nuances, expressions, and cultural contexts that make communication effective and meaningful. Vocabulary becomes a bridge that connects her to the people around her, helping her to express herself clearly, confidently, and authentically. The story illustrates how Mia approaches vocabulary as a fundamental part of her language learning journey. Whether she's practicing new words during her morning routine, engaging in conversations with her Australian friend Sophie, or jotting down unfamiliar terms in her journal, Mia knows that building a strong vocabulary is essential. Each new word she learns enriches her ability to think in English, speak fluently, and understand the subtleties of the language that go beyond basic communication. The vocabulary Mia acquires is not just about everyday conversations. It's also about deepening her understanding of Australian culture and enhancing her professional skills as a graphic designer. Terms like nuance, fluency, and confidence are not just abstract concepts, but real goals that Mia strives for in her quest to master English. As she grows more comfortable with the language, these words start to define her experience, shaping her identity. In a country where English is the gateway to both personal and professional success, this introduction emphasizes the critical role that vocabulary plays in Mia's journey of learning English. It highlights how each word she learns is a step towards greater fluency, deeper cultural understanding, and personal growth. Through expanding her vocabulary, Mia is not just learning a language, she's building a life in a new country. A day in the life of Mia in Australia. Mia, a 28-year-old woman living in Melbourne, Australia, woke up to the soft light of dawn filtering through the curtains of her cozy apartment. The clock beside her bed read 6:30 a.m., and she could hear the faint sounds of the city waking up outside. Beside her, Lucas, her 30-year-old boyfriend, was still sound asleep, his arm comfortably draped over her waist. Gently slipping out of bed, Mia stretched her arms and headed to the bathroom to start her day. She was meticulous about her skincare, especially after moving to Australia, where the sun was much stronger than she was used to. She knew the importance of taking care of her skin, so she had developed a routine that kept her complexion glowing and healthy. She began by washing her face with a gentle cleanser, massaging it into her skin in small, circular motions. Mia had always been prone to dryness, so she chose a hydrating toner to follow, which she patted lightly onto her skin. Next came her favorite vitamin C serum, which she had been using religiously since her early 20s to keep her skin bright and even-toned. Finally, she applied a generous layer of SPF 50 sunscreen, a non-negotiable step in her morning routine. The Australian sun could be unforgiving, and Mia was determined to protect her skin. With her skincare routine complete, Mia moved on to her makeup. She preferred a natural look, one that enhanced her features without looking overdone. She applied a light layer of foundation, just enough to even out her skin tone, and dabbed a bit of concealer under her eyes to cover any signs of sleepiness. A soft pink blush followed, giving her cheeks a healthy glow. Mia had always loved experimenting with makeup, but these days she found herself leaning towards a more minimalist approach. For her eyes, Mia kept it simple. A swipe of mascara to define her lashes, and a touch of brown eyeliner at the corners of her eyes was all she needed. Finally, she applied her favorite nude lipstick, a shade that was just a touch darker than her natural lip color, perfect for any occasion. Mia glanced at herself in the mirror, satisfied with her look. She loved how her makeup routine had evolved over the years, from bold, experimental colors in her teenage years to the subtle, refined look she favored now. It was a reflection of how she had grown, not just in age, but in confidence and self-assuredness. Morning routine and breakfast. By the time Mia was done getting ready, Lucas had woken up and was already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the apartment, mingling with the scent of sizzling eggs. Mia walked into the kitchen and smiled at the sight of Lucas standing by the stove, wearing his usual morning attire of sweatpants and a t-shirt. Lucas greeted her with a warm smile as he handed her a cup of coffee. "Good morning," Mia replied, taking a sip of the rich, dark brew. Coffee was a staple in their morning routine, something they both enjoyed together before the rush of the day began. Lucas had prepared a simple yet delicious breakfast of scrambled eggs, avocado toast, and fresh fruit. It was one of their favorite morning meals, light but satisfying. As they sat down at the small dining table by the window, they chatted about their plans for the day. Mia had a busy schedule ahead, with work and a language exchange meeting later in the evening, while Lucas had his own commitments at the office. Mia worked as a freelance graphic designer, a job that allowed her the flexibility to work from home. It was something she had always dreamed of, and moving to Australia had given her the perfect opportunity to make it a reality. The diversity of cultures and the vibrant art scene in Melbourne had inspired her in ways she hadn't imagined before. Improving English skills. Though Mia was originally from Italy, she had moved to Australia 3 years ago with Lucas, who was an Australian native. When she first arrived, Mia's English was basic enough to get by, but she was determined to master the language. She knew that becoming fluent in English was essential not just for her career, but also for fully integrating into life in Australia. Mia had started by enrolling in an intensive English course, which helped her build a strong foundation. But she knew that true fluency would only come with practice and immersion. She began watching Australian TV shows, listening to local radio stations, and reading English books and newspapers. But the most significant part of her learning journey was forcing herself to think in English, a habit that didn't come easily at first. At the beginning, Mia often found herself translating Italian thoughts into English in her head, which slowed down her ability to communicate. However, with consistent practice, she gradually began to think directly in English. She also started keeping a journal where she wrote her thoughts, dreams, and daily experiences entirely in English. This not only improved her vocabulary, but also helped her to express herself more naturally. Naturally, it took Mia about a year of dedicated practice to feel confident speaking English in any situation. Now, 3 years later, she was fluent and even comfortable using Australian slang, something that had once seemed impossible. Mid-morning work and learning. After breakfast, Lucas left for work and Mia settled into her home office to start her day. Her workspace was bright and filled with plants, a small haven of creativity for a graphic designer. Her tasks varied from day to day, but today she was working on a project for a local boutique, designing their new logo and branding materials. She had incorporated learning into her daily routine before diving into her design work. She spent an hour reviewing new vocabulary and practicing her pronunciation. She used language exchange apps to connect with native English speakers who wanted to learn Italian, creating a mutually beneficial learning environment. They would chat online, sometimes meet in person, alternating between English and Italian, correcting each other and sharing cultural insights. One of Mia's favorite ways to learn was through cooking. She had developed a love for Australian cuisine and often tried out new recipes that introduced her to local ingredients and cooking methods. Today, she planned to make a traditional Australian dish for dinner, something she had learned from one of her English-speaking friends. Afternoon adventures. By the time noon rolled around, Mia decided to take a break and head out for a walk. One of the things she loved most about living in Melbourne was the city's walkability. The vibrant streets, filled with cafes, shops, and art, provided endless inspiration for her work. Mia had arranged to meet her friend Sophie, an Australian she had met at one of her language exchange events. Sophie had been instrumental in helping Mia understand the nuances of Australian culture, from the laid-back lifestyle to the unique slang that often puzzled newcomers. They decided to meet at their favorite cafe, a quaint little spot tucked away in one of Melbourne's many laneways. As they sat down with their lattes, Mia and Sophie chatted about everything from work to weekend plans. Mia found these conversations invaluable, not just for practicing English, but also for deepening her connection to her new home. Sophie always encouraged Mia to speak freely, correcting her only when necessary, which helped build Mia's confidence. After their coffee, the two friends wandered through the nearby market, browsing the stalls filled with fresh produce, handmade crafts, and vintage clothing. Mia loved these markets. They reminded her of the ones back home in Italy, yet they had their own distinctly Australian charm. She picked up some fresh vegetables for dinner and a bouquet of native Australian flowers to brighten up her apartment. Evening cooking, relaxing, and reflecting. Returning home, Mia felt a sense of contentment. She enjoyed the balance of her life in Australia, the blend of work, socializing, and personal growth. She set to work in the kitchen, preparing dinner for herself and Lucas. Tonight's menu included a classic Australian meat pie with a side of roasted vegetables. Cooking had become another way for Mia to immerse herself in the culture, as well as a way to unwind after a busy day. As she cooked, Mia found herself thinking in English without even trying. It was a small victory, a sign of how far she had come since moving to Australia. The days of struggling to find the right words were behind her. Lucas arrived home just as Mia was finishing up in the kitchen. They sat down to dinner together, discussing their days and making plans for the weekend. Afterward, they curled up on the couch to watch a movie, a routine that had become a cherished part of their evenings. Before bed, Mia went through her nighttime skincare routine, which was just as detailed as her morning one. She removed her makeup with a gentle cleansing oil, followed by a hydrating cleanser to wash away the day's impurities. She then applied a rich moisturizer and eye cream to keep fine lines at bay, and a lip balm to keep her lips soft and smooth. As she slipped into bed, Mia reflected on her journey from the early days of struggling with English to now, where it had become a natural part of her life. She was proud of how far she had come. She knew there was always more to learn, more to explore, but she felt confident in her ability to navigate the challenges ahead. Mia fell asleep with a smile on her face, ready to embrace whatever tomorrow might bring in her Australian adventure.